Welcome, everybody, to another very special episode of ISSA Talk. I'm your host, Jenny Scott, master trainer and key contributor to some certifications here at ISSA that maybe you've taken before. I'm joined by someone who is so exciting to talk to because we're both competitive athletes. She's far more competitive than I am. And we both love transforming lives through fitness. Claire Dorotik. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to tackle this topic with you again because helping clients overcome barriers has been the number one thing that we as trainers want to do, right?
Of course.
Absolutely. So it's the key. We have to help them transform. We can't just give them, like you said last time, directives. So I'm excited to jump right in. You ready, kid?
I'm ready.
All right. So I want to talk to you like as an ultra marathoner, again, kudos to you. Good for you. Even the most motivated of people have barriers that keep them from reaching their goals. So in your opinion, I want to know what's the number one barrier that you come across or that you see in people?
I would say the number one thing is the why. Why do we want to do this? It's really easy to think, we should do this, we should do that. People around us say, you should get healthy or we just figure that's what I want. The number one thing is to really identify why do you want to do that? For me, when I started first with marathons, and it was really because, I just wanted to see how many marathons I could run. So it was a little bit of extremism going on. But then once I learned about ultra marathons, I was running a triple marathon, so 3 marathons in three days, and there were a lot of people there training for 100 miles. And at that time, I thought, oh my God, those people are like not human. But the second thought I had is, well, I want to do that, because obviously they're human, they're doing it. So for me, the why was, I wanted to test myself. I wanted to see if I had it in me. And that kept me going. I'd love to try and run 200 miles. That would be awesome for me because I've done 100 miles several times. So I think the number one reason that people maybe fail to make change is because it's a really introspective process. You really have to sit with yourself and figure out, why do I want to do this? What does it represent for me? For some people, maybe it represents finally being able to speak up and advocate for what you want. Maybe it represents overcoming barriers in your life. Who knows? But we have to figure out why we want that.
Absolutely. So in a perfect world, though, we always achieve our goals, right? We do what we came here to do. We get it done and we have no obstacles along the way. But in real life, that's not what happens. So like, for example, in running 100 miles, first of all, if I ran 2 miles, I'd experience some setbacks. But when people get frustrated, when they have setbacks, whether it's they get injured or, it starts to rain out, like little things can be setbacks. Like how do you help somebody through those frustrations?
You just sit with them. That's all you do. So many times we want to move people from difficult emotions or say you shouldn't feel that way. You shouldn't be sad. We want people to feel better. And when we do that, we skip a step. We sort of say it's not okay to be frustrated. It's not okay to feel sad. It's not okay to feel anxious, because there's always a lesson to be learned there. And all of us are going to suffer from frustration at some point. And so one of the hardest things we can do is don't try to change it. Let the client work their way through it. Because if you try to change it too quick, it's like a wound. You can't have a wound heal unless you clean it out. You have to have everything understood by the client and be able to cope with that frustration. You can't just sort of like smother it over and hope that they're going to be fine. So just sit with them, share the frustration with them, allow them to feel frustrated.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. Sit in it. I like that a lot. So let's talk about commitment strategies. What are commitment strategies? What are they?
I love commitment strategies. People understand economics, and it's very easy to think about, why we get a job because we need to make money. Why, we're going to pay the car bill because we have a car and we need a car. So we understand economics very, very well. But when it comes to behavior change, we usually don't attach those things. And imagine if we did. So imagine if, for example, you said to your best friend, listen, here's $1,000. And if I don't follow my running program for the next 2 weeks, you keep the money. And you bet when we wake up and we think, oh man, I don't want to lose $1,000, we're going to get our butts out of bed.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a commitment strategy. And it consists of, you have to have a referee, which is the person that basically is going to enforce the rules. And you have to have a set of rules. And then you also have a punishment, or a commitment device, which is what you're going to lose if you don't do what you're supposed to do.
Okay. So that could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be money, right? It could be like you want a new puppy, and if you don't finish this, then you don't get your new puppy, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could say, listen, you want to go take a vacation to Hawaii. The best thing that we can do with commitment strategies is not, if you do this, you're going to get it. It's better is, this is what you're going to lose. And the reason for that is what we already have, we feel more attached to than what we don't have.
Ooh,
So
good point.
There's something called the endowment effect. And that is, if, let's say that you go to, Walmart, and you go and you pick yourself, a table and chairs, right? And you buy that table and chairs, and then later you go back to Walmart and you see that the table and chairs, is there again, and you think to yourself, I wouldn't return it if I could, because now that I've had it for a while, I like it. I got used to it, and I made reasons in my head why this is a good table and chair that, fits really well. I like the color, whatever. And so once we have something and we've already become attached to it, it's a lot stronger to think about taking that away than to get something that we don't even have. Because if I say, well, we can go on a vacation, it's easy to say, well, I don't have that anyway, so I'm not going to do the program, but if you think I already have, my car, I don't want to lose that. That's powerful.
Absolutely. Now, I'm curious, though, as a transformation specialist working with a client, do you help them pick what they would potentially lose, or do you have them arrive at that? Which one's stronger?
I think it's stronger when we do it together, because we think about, what do you have that would be about as much as you could give that you also could not lose? So we can't have it be, something that they don't even have. We can't say $10,000 when they have $2,000. So we have to have, the right amount and something that they really can't afford to lose. So it's best if we work together with them. And, if a client says, okay, well, I'm going to put $10, then we can stop right there and we can say, well, what's your level of motivation? It's easy to lose $10. And if you're willing to put more, that tells me you're willing to risk more. This is how much you really want this.
I like that. That kind of gauges their motivation. That's clever.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you said before that we don't want to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong. We don't want them to feel like they're failing at something, or that they're just not doing it right. So I'm going to tell you how I think of transformation, and I want you to tell me if it's right. Like, am I thinking about this the right way? That transformation is all about changing behaviors, not necessarily eliminating bad ones or bad behaviors, right?
Well, I would say, the outcome of transformation is changing behaviors. The catalyst for transformation is changing identity, right? So again, this is the difference between second order changes, changing behavior, and first order changes, changing identity. So you can say this person is transformed because now they're getting up every morning and running, but it's different to think why. Why did they do it? They do it because now they think of themselves differently. So that's kind of the reason that transformation starts to happen, is we don't feel like that person anymore who sleeps in. We feel like that person who gets up early and actually takes joy in overcoming the resistance, the desire not to get up.
Oh, wow. So they've essentially changed their identity.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Because identity guides everything we do. So if I see myself as a strong person, I'm not going to mind when somebody challenges me. If I see myself as a people pleaser, I'm not challenging anybody, because I always want to make things okay. I want to smooth things over. I don't want any conflict. So whoever we see ourselves as is going to guide the behaviors that follow that identity. So if we really want to change, we got to look at the identity there.
Absolutely. So when you're working with a client, though, do you help them identify the behaviors that they need to change, or do they usually come to you with a problem or a behavior that they want to change?
Well, it's actually really simple, because if you start with, who do you want to be? And the client says, I want to be a healthy person. I want to get up every day. I want to run. I want to, do some sporting events, or, I want to learn to play tennis or whatever. Okay. What does that person look like? And then start talking to the client about, well, here's my idea. It's the person who, learns to play tennis. They join a tennis club, or whatever. They eat chicken and broccoli every night, whatever. But it has to come from the client. These are the things that I think go with that person. And then we begin to look at, what are the behaviors that are actually there? What's the reality? And then what's the mismatch here? This is what I want. This is what I'm doing. What's getting in the way there? So we can go through one behavior after another. Well, you think a tennis player should get up early, but you're not getting up early. You think a tennis player should eat chicken and broccoli, but you're eating, pizza, whatever. And so we start looking at, what are the things that we can begin to change there that make you fit more the identity that you want to reach.
Oh, Claire, you are blowing my mind, like for real, like laying down some knowledge over here. This is so cool. So I know one phrase that I've heard associated with you a lot is teaching people how to leverage adversity. Leverage adversity. That's like, I'm like in awe of that statement. What does that mean to you?
So there's a concept called, okay, so let me start from the beginning. You know what post-traumatic stress disorder is, right? Everybody's heard that term, PTSD. So it has a corollary, and the opposite of post-traumatic stress disorder, something called post-traumatic growth. Okay, so post-traumatic growth is not resilience. A lot of times it gets mismatched with resilience. So post-traumatic growth is when we have a traumatic event that becomes the springboard for positive psychological change. Okay, so post-traumatic growth has 5 categories. So we see a greater appreciation for life. So if you think about it, if you almost lost your life, you're probably going to appreciate it a lot more. The person is also more open. So, if our life changes dramatically, then there has to be an openness to living in a different way. Maybe all of a sudden we can't do what we thought we were going to do. We hurt ourselves. We can't continue in the career we wanted, whatever the case may be. There's a deepening of our sense of faith, because there's a feeling that, whatever happened, that I was able to get through that process, it must have been something larger than myself. So it doesn't necessarily have to be religious. It can just be a sense of faith in something larger, kind of a transference, I guess, above ourselves. And then there is a deepening of relationships also, so that we begin to feel like, a lot of people will say things like, you find out who your friends are. And you begin to realize what you really want in a relationship, what's really important to you, and what you won't tolerate also.
Yeah.
And then the last one is a sense of personal strength. So these are all the things that happen in post-traumatic growth. We have a sense of openness, we have an appreciation, we have a greater sense of personal strength, we have a deepening of relationships, and we have a deepening of faith. So if you look at that concept and you think, that kind of applies to any kind of adversity that we have. We can look at adversity and we can say, how can we use this to incite positive psychological growth? And so, a lot of people will say things like, well, I just want to become more resilient. Well, resilience is fine if all you want to do is just get up every time you've been knocked down. But I would prefer to spring forward every time I've been knocked down. I would prefer to say, you know what, let me look at why I was knocked down, and let me look at how I can improve that and ultimately end up better. So I don't want to just, stand there while the waves hit me over and over and learn to stand up better. I actually want to learn to duck dive, because that's going to help me more.
Absolutely.
And so that's what I mean when I say leverage adversity. Look at adversity like something that you need to make you better.
Ooh, I think that's a mic drop right there. That's awesome. That's a really great way to look at it. And there's an opportunity, and you've said it before, you have to ask questions of your clients. Ask questions, don't just give them directives. But if you ask the right questions and you truly listen to the answers, you'll find those opportunities, things that maybe they didn't even recognize that are keeping them back, or adversity that they're facing. And maybe you can help them turn it into something positive and make changes, beyond their fitness. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and a lot of times personal trainers will want to just say, well, let's just get rid of those negative behaviors. And sometimes when I've been working with clients, I'll say, do it more. Do that negative behavior more, because then we can figure out what is really going on. If we're stuck and we don't know why you're doing that, let's just do it more. And then that way we'll get to know what's happening in that process of that behavior. And if there's a resistance, no, I don't want to do this anymore, then that tells us something else too. Maybe you don't feel the way that you normally feel when you do that. But the idea is that, whatever it is, whatever adversity is happening in that relationship with the client, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to get to know the client better, for the client to know themselves better, and to ultimately learn more. And the more you learn, the more effective you're going to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so cool, Claire. Do you have a favorite type of client to work with? Like whether it's a certain type of goal or a certain background, anything like that?
You know, one thing I like to do, and I know that I already said this, when a client comes into my office, the first thing I always want to ask is, what is it like for you to be here? You know, and you're going to find that the client has a lot of assumptions just about the prospect of change. They think maybe change means that they have to white knuckle it through the process, and it's going to be horrible, and it's not going to be fun at all. So I like to kind of get back down to, what are the assumptions and the biases that we bring to this process, because oftentimes in that we will find where the resistance is, why we're not getting where we want to get to.
Absolutely. So it sounds like the best kind of client is any client that comes in, because they're all like a blank slate, right? They're all going to have their own unique experience.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily that any one is better than another. I mean, one of my favorite types of clients to work with is the one who feels misunderstood. The one who's maybe been to a lot of different trainers, and they feel like every time the trainer just tells me to do this, and they don't get that I can't just do that.
Yeah.
And maybe, they don't understand that I'm not just going to be able to just poof change to a totally different person. And my background is also in trauma, and I would tell you that it's not rare at all that you're going to find a client who wants to change their life who doesn't have trauma. And that's something that most of us, transformation specialists or personal trainers or fitness professionals, we don't dive into that, because we think, oh, we should stay away from that, it's too overwhelming, it's too whatever. Well, that's where we got to go. That's where we got to go, because if we don't, it's going to come at us. It's going to come back
Yeah.
to that client, and the client's also going to feel, well, I can't tell you that because it's too shameful or whatever. And then actually, the more that they hide it with you, who's supposed to be transforming their life, the more shameful it becomes, because they think, my God, I'm supposed to be changing my life, but I can't tell them this. And how strange is that? So we gotta be able to talk about that stuff, whatever is challenging for them.
Absolutely. Well, guys, my biggest takeaway from this is we can't just train people. We have to absolutely transform them. And so just being a trainer is not good enough. It's not. And so thank you so much, Claire, for sharing all this knowledge with us. There's so much more to learn, and so much more that I'm sure you have in that little noggin of yours. But we look forward to hopefully working with you maybe on some courses and using our transformation course and really getting some good knowledge out there so people can make changes.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for spending some of your day with us, Claire. I hope you have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.